my name is Noah Carter. I'm 24, and I live in a small studio apartment just outside Nashville, Tennessee. It's nothing special. One room, a kitchenette that barely fits a hot plate, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a single window that looks out onto the back of a laundromat. The rent's cheap, and that's what matters. I don't have a steady job, not the kind with a badge or a desk. I do whatever needs doing around town. Mowing lawns, patching roofs, cleaning gutters, hauling junk, anything that pays cash and doesn't require a tie. My truck is a 2003 Ford Ranger, rust freckles along the fenders, a toolbox bolted into the bed. That truck is my office, my schedule, my backup plan. Most days blend together. I wake up around 6, grab coffee from the gas station on the corner, and stop by the hardware store to check the corkboard. People pin flyers there, odd jobs, quick fixes, things they don't want to deal with themselves. I rip off the tabs, make a few calls, and see who answers. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on and the truck running. I don't have a girlfriend, no weekend plans. Just me, the open road between jobs, and the hum of the radio playing whatever country station comes in clear. That Thursday started like any other. Late summer heat hung thick in the air, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes breathing feel heavier than it should. I'd finished trimming hedges for an old woman who paid me with a $20 bill and a glass of lemonade. I was killing time at the hardware store when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but cash is cash. Hello? A woman's voice came through, calm and direct. I saw your ad at the store. I need someone to clean up a backyard. Nothing professional, just reliable. Can you come by this afternoon? Quote. I checked the time. 2:30. Sure. What's the address? She gave it to me. An older street on the edge of town, the kind with houses that had been standing longer than most people bothered to care for them. 3 o'clock work, I said. I'll be there. The drive took about 15 minutes. Cornfields turning gold, subdivisions blurring past. I pulled into a cul-de-sac and spotted the house right away. A modest white farmhouse with peeling shutters and a white picket fence that leaned like it was tired of pretending to stand straight. The front yard was neat enough. The backyard, visible through a gap in the fence, was another story. Weeds climbed to my knees. Bushes had gone wild. A trellis sagged under vines that had given up on being pretty. I parked, grabbed my gloves and shears and walked up the porch. The steps creaked under my boots. I knocked twice. The door opened almost immediately. She stood there framed in the doorway like she'd been waiting. Mid-30s, maybe 38. Light brown hair pulled into a loose knot. Eyes the color of storm clouds. Gray, blue, sharp, but not unkind. She wore a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up and khaki pants softened by too many washes. No makeup, no jewelry, except a thin silver watch. You're the guy from the ad, she said. Noah, yeah. She nodded once and stepped aside. Backyard's through here. Fence is falling apart. Roses are dead. Grass is a mess. Do what you can. I'll be inside. No small talk, no offer of water. I liked that. The yard told a quiet story, something once loved, then slowly forgotten. I started with the weeds, sweat soaking through my shirt as the sun beat down. Yank, toss, yank, toss. I lost track of time and the rhythm. An hour later, the back door opened. She came out with 2 glasses of lemonade, ice clinking softly. She handed one to me. You always work alone like this? She asked. Pretty much, I said. Easier that way. She watched the fence for a moment. Take your time. Then she went back inside, leaving the screen door to slap shut behind her. By 5:30, the yard looked better. Not perfect, but breathing again. I packed my tools and knocked. She handed me a wad of cash, more than we'd agreed on. For the extra time, she said. Then, almost casually, tomorrow, same time, lavender needs trimming. Our fingers brushed. See you then, she said. As I drove away, the fence still leaned, but it held. For now. I told myself I was only going back for the work. That's what I repeated the next afternoon as I pulled up to the same leaning fence, the same white farmhouse, the same driveway shaded by the oak tree that dripped sap onto my hood. Work was work. Cash was cash. That was the rule. Still, I caught myself checking my reflection in the truck window before I got out, smoothing my hair with my fingers like it mattered. The front door was already cracked open. I knocked anyway. Lauren, she'd introduced herself before I left the day before, appeared almost instantly. She looked different, more human. A faded blue t-shirt, an apron dusted with flour tied around her waist, hair messier than before with strands escaping at her neck. There was a white streak of something, flour maybe across her cheek. "You're early," she said. "Traffic was light," I replied, lifting my pruning shears. "Lavender?" She stepped aside. "Kitchen first. I attempted bread. It's a crime scene." The kitchen smelled yeasty and burnt at the same time. On the counter sat a loaf that looked more like a brick than food, its top split open like it had given up halfway through becoming bread. "I followed the recipe," she said, poking it with a knife. "It didn't move." "Smells better than it looks," I said. "Liar." She sliced off a piece anyway and handed it to me like a challenge. I took a bite. Dense, salty, wrong in a way I couldn't immediately explain. I chewed carefully. Unique. She laughed. Full and sudden, like the sound surprised even her. "That bad, huh?" She dumped the rest into the trash without ceremony. "My mom used to make bread every Sunday." Thought I'd try. There was something in the way she said it that made me stop joking. "The house has been quiet since she passed," she added quickly. "Noise helps. Even bad bread noise." I nodded, not pretending I knew how to fix that. Outside, the lavender bed was overgrown, woody, tired. I clipped carefully, the scent sharp and clean in the air. 10 minutes in, Lauren came out with 2 glasses of iced tea and sat in the wicker chair, watching without talking. "You always this quiet?" she asked eventually. "Only when people pay me to be." She smiled faintly. "Good." We talked in pieces. Her moving back after a divorce. No kids. No drama. Just tired people signing papers and splitting records. Me telling her I'd never stayed anywhere long enough to build a life that needed splitting. When I finished, she paid me more than she needed to again. "Fence post still needs replacing," I said. "I can grab one tomorrow." She hesitated. "Tomorrow's Saturday." "I know." She studied me, then nodded. "Monday then. I might attempt cookies next." Driving home, she sent me with a paper bag containing the failed bread for the birds. I set it on the passenger seat like it mattered. Saturday morning, a breeze came through that felt like fall, thinking about arriving early. I told myself I wasn't going back. Then my phone buzzed. Picked up pots and soil. "Daisy's. If you were around." I was already grabbing my keys. She had 2 pairs of gloves laid out, one small, one large, like she'd expected me. We worked side by side, dirt under our nails, bees humming around the lavender. At one point, I flung soil onto her sleeve by accident. She smeared dirt across my cheek in return. We laughed. Real laughter, the kind that leaves you breathless and surprised you're capable of it. Over iced tea at the kitchen table, she admitted, "I like the company." When I left, she asked, "Monday?" "Monday," I said. That afternoon, her message came again. "Mind if I borrow a shoulder?" I didn't hesitate. Rain poured by the time I arrived. She met me at the door in an oversized sweater, eyes red but dry. "It's the anniversary," she said quietly. "My mom." On the screened porch, she leaned against me without asking. I let her. No fixing, no advice, just steady. Later, over coffee, she handed me an umbrella. "For next time." "Next time," I said. As I drove home, the umbrella sat on the seat like a promise. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't in a hurry to finish the job. By Friday, showing up at Lauren's place didn't feel like work anymore. I told myself it was still about the cash, still about the jobs that kept my tank half full and my fridge stocked with beer and leftovers. But that lie got thinner every time I turned onto her street. That evening, I arrived just after 7 with a cheap bottle of red wine in one hand and something wrapped in a towel in the other. I'd built it from scrap cedar in my garage. A simple porch light, not fancy, just solid. Like the new fence post she'd replaced herself earlier in the week. White paint, still bright against the weathered rails. She opened the door barefoot, wearing a soft green dress, her hair down for the first time. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes simmering, warm and familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. "You're early," she said, smiling like she didn't mind. Traffic was light. I handed her the light first. For the porch. Thought it deserved something softer than the overhead glare. She turned it in her hands, quiet for a moment. "You made this?" Quote, "From a deck job." Figured it fit. Dinner was pasta, perfectly done. We ate at the small round table, jazz humming low from a speaker on the counter. We talked about nothing important. Her editing work, my odd jobs, a kid who paid me in Pokemon cards. The wine smoothed the edges. When the plates were empty, she leaned back and said, "If I were 10 years younger, I'd ask you to dance." I stood without thinking and held out my hand. "I'm not." She laughed, surprised, then took it. We swayed in the living room, slow and clumsy, her hand warm on my shoulder, her head resting against my chest. No steps, no plan. Just the quiet rhythm of two people learning how to stand close without bracing for impact. When the song ended, she didn't pull away right away. Outside, the porch light glowed warm when she flipped the switch. It cast a soft circle over the wicker chairs, the daisies in their pots, the fence still leaning but holding. She stepped into me and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her head against my chest again. This time, it wasn't dancing. Just holding. "I don't know what this is," she whispered. "Me neither," I said, "but I'm not stopping." She smiled into my shirt. Coffee turned into staying. Staying turned into quiet conversation on the couch, knees touching, fingers brushing, and not moving away. When I finally left, the porch light stayed on behind me, spilling warmth into the yard like it was meant to guide me back. The following week settled into a rhythm. Work during the day. Evenings at her place more often than not. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes I fixed things. Sometimes I didn't. One night, rain came hard again. She opened the door before I knocked. "Can you stay?" she asked. I didn't ask how long. We sat on the screened porch, listening to the rain drum against the roof. She leaned into me, familiar now, her head fitting against my shoulder like it had always known where to go. "You have strong shoulders," she said quietly. "Can I borrow one for a day?" I smiled into her hair, in exchange for dinner. She laughed softly, then went quiet again. The fence could wait. So could everything else. By the time Monday came around again, it felt like the house had learned our names. The daisies along the fence were standing taller now, their yellow faces turned toward the morning sun. The lavender had filled in, neat and fragrant, and the new fence post stood straight and clean, a small declaration that something broken could still be set right. Lauren was already awake when I arrived. The porch light was off. It didn't need to be on in daylight, but the door was open, jazz floating out soft and low. "You're early," she said, leaning against the frame. "Couldn't sleep." She smiled like she understood more than I'd said. We didn't start with work. We made coffee, strong and black, drank it at the kitchen counter while the house warmed around us. No rush, no checklist, just quiet that didn't feel empty anymore. Later, she pulled an old photo from a drawer, a Polaroid of her mother in the garden, roses in her arms, dirt on her hands, smiling like she belonged exactly where she was. "She would have liked you," Lauren said. I studied the photo, then handed it back carefully. "She raised someone who knows how to keep things alive." Lauren swallowed, nodded once. That evening, dinner was simple. Soup and bread, store-bought this time. We ate on the porch as the sky turned lavender and the crickets started up again. She leaned into me without thinking, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You know," she said, tracing a slow line on my forearm, "I hired you to fix the yard." "Didn't realize it was a package deal," I said. She smiled. "You didn't fix everything." "No," I agreed, "but some things don't need fixing." She rested her head on my shoulder, borrowed and unreturned. When I left later, the door stayed open behind me, lights spilling out into the yard. The fence still leaned in places. The house still creaked. Life wasn't suddenly perfect, but it was steady. And for the first time in a long while, neither of us was in a hurry to fix what wasn't broken.